Although he stood tall on the screen just as he had done on the battlefield, Audie Murphy's stature was not an imposing one. Standing at just 5 feet 5 inches tall, both his civilian and military endeavors more than made up for his lack of height. Born on June 20, 1925 in Kingston, Texas, the seventh of 12 children, his beginnings were not the kind that bring to mind a hero. After his father abandoned his family, Audie became a skilled rifleman, providing game for the family table, as well as dropping out of school to get a job picking cotton to help make ends meet. Described as a quiet, polite young man, the death of his mother when he was 16 years old would cause a loss within him for the rest of his life. With his mother gone in the attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, he decided to follow his dreams of becoming a soldier, but was turned down by the United States Army, Navy, and Marines for being underage and underweight. With the help of his sister, who falsified paperwork, making him a year older than he was, Audie was finally accepted into the Army at 17 years old. Always preferring to go by Leon, his middle name, he started to use Audie or Murph while in the service, after learning that Leon was associated with rednecks. After shipping out overseas to the European theater in 1943, he would spend the better part of the next 2 years on the front lines, his skill as a hunter and his ability with a rifle earning him distinction throughout the war. Rising from buck private to first lieutenant by war's end, he took part in the landings at Sicily, Salerno, Battipaglia, the assault on the Verterno Line, and the landing at Anzio, to name a few, and earned the distinction of becoming the highest decorated American soldier of World War II. A distinction he never liked, as well as the title of a hero, believing the dead to be more worthy of the honors. He received every American combat decoration for valor that was available, including the highest of all, the Medal of Honor, as well as decorations from the French government, including the French Legion of Honor, grade of Cavalier, the French Croix de Guerre with Silver Star, the French Croix de Guerre with Palm, and the French Liberation Medal. The Belgian government also showed their respect for Audie, awarding him the Belgian Croix de Guerre with 1940 Palm. After the war, he went on a national tour recognized as the most decorated American soldier. Audie Murphy was honorably discharged from the United States Army on September 21, 1945, with the rank of first lieutenant and classified as 50% disabled. Actor James Cagney took notice of Audie on the cover of Life magazine and invited him to Hollywood. Signed as a contract player for Cagney Productions, Cagney and his brother gave Audie acting, voice, and dance training. By 1947, Cagney Productions came to believe that Audie, at least at that time, didn't have what it took to be an actor and released him from his contract. Without a credit to his name, Audie didn't give up and received his first 2 roles a year later, in Texas, Brooklyn, and Heaven, and the Alan Ladd film, Beyond Glory. Within 2 years, he had a starring role playing Billy the Kid in the 1950 western, The Kid from Texas. Always professional in hitting his mark, Audie was perfect for the low-budget westerns that he settled into, his soft accent and easygoing personality applying well on screen. Although most of his films are rather forgettable fare, falling in with many westerns of the day, he did have a handful of very memorable roles that lifted him above the average western star. First would probably be The Red Badge of Courage, directed by John Huston. Then No Name on the Bullet, Night Passage with Jimmy Stewart, The Unforgiven, again directed by Huston, co-starring Burt Lancaster, Audrey Hepburn, Lillian Gish, and Charles Bickford. If asked, though, most fans would say that his most memorable role was when he played himself in the 1955 movie adaptation of his autobiography, To Hell and Back. A role Audie remarked he didn't think he was the type for. Originally wanting Tony Curtis for the star, Audie was talked into playing himself, and the film went on to be the biggest hit that Universal Studios had had to that time. Audie had wanted to make a sequel called Going Home, showing the troubled soldier's face returning to civilian life. A fact he was full aware of himself, but he couldn't get the backing for the project. Although he was never one to air his laundry in public, those who were close to him and spent any time around him knew that the war had taken a toll on him. 2 years on the front had all but worn his nerves completely away, to the point where very little could excite him. A fact that led to high-stakes gambling and working on drug busts with the Texas police, where he'd walk alone, unarmed, down the streets at night. Audie also had difficulty going to sleep and suffered from nightmares, for which he was prescribed heavy sleeping medications, and to which he became addicted. However, when Audie realized what the pills were doing to him, he rented a room and locked himself in for 2 weeks alone, going through the pains of withdrawals and starting the path to recovery by himself. That takes an extreme amount of grit. Like most Western stars in the 1950s, Audie's career took a downward spiral as the decade turned. But where most hung up their hats and rubbed down their horses, Audie wouldn't quit. Starring in a short-lived TV series in 1961 titled Whispering Smith, he also made 18 features during the 1960s. His interests, though, were not just confined to the silver screen, as he raised racehorses as well as became a songwriter, writing pieces for such singers as Dean Martin, Eddie Arnold, and Charley Pride. He was also extremely outspoken during the late 60s on behalf of veterans. With the Vietnam War reaching its height, he campaigned the government to spend more time and money on the returning vets. His campaign, no doubt, was fueled at least in part by his own experiences after World War II, just over 20 years before. Audie Leon Murphy died on May 28, 1971, when a private plane crashed into Brush Mountain near Catawba, Virginia, 20 miles west of Roanoke, resulting in the death of 5 others who were traveling on the plane. Buried in Arlington National Cemetery, Audie's is the second most visited grave, with a flagstone path constructed to accommodate the large number of people who wished to pay their respects to one of the many heroes of World War II. His headstone is uniquely inconspicuous for a Medal of Honor winner. The tombstones of those who have received the highest military decoration the United States can bestow is decorated with gold leaf. In recognition of their distinction, Audie requested that his marker be left plain and unadorned, no different than any other soldier's. It's said that death had to take Theodore Roosevelt while he was in his sleep, because if he had been awake there would have been a struggle. Apparently death couldn't even afford to give Audie Murphy the chance of waking from rest. I think we can all agree that Audie Murphy had a hard life, from his childhood until his death. But that's the point. He took the worst that life could give and made a legacy out of it. Through things that would have killed other men, he became a legend. And though he never wanted it, he became a hero.